It's 8 o'clock where I am, but I just want to welcome everyone to the second part of our series on the new release of the Food Loss and Waste Protocol. My name is Kyle Poorman, and I'm the Consortium for Innovation in Post-Harvest Loss and Food Waste Reductions communication manager and the moderator for this online training. We want to welcome you and say thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Like I said before, this is the second part. A couple of weeks ago, we had a broad overview webinar, and now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the online training. We're joined by colleagues from Iowa State University and Wageningen University and Research today. And so I thank them as well for being with us. Just some housekeeping bits. We have to tell you that the webinar will be recorded, and that's great because we can put it on our website and you can view it again. And that will be on our website later today, but it is being recorded. The chat is also being recorded as well. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our members and also our funders, the Rockefeller Foundation and the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. So thank you very much. We have a phenomenal consortium. So thank you. And just want to quickly go through the agenda. We'll have a brief introduction about the consortium. We'll have a presentation. Then we'll go into some Excel trading. We'll have some questions and answers. We'll ask you afterwards to do an online form and an assessment form about the training, but also about your plans for the future. And then we'll talk about next steps. And I will plug another webinar that's coming up on June 30th. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Dirk Meyer, the consortium's director. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. And I just want to echo my appreciation for all of you joining us this morning, and also very much for all of you who are participating again from around the world. This is the focus of today's webinar is as a training session as a follow-up to our webinar about the new post-harvest loss and food waste protocol that our colleagues from Wageningen University and Research are introducing as part of the effort by our Consortium for Innovation in Post-Harvest Loss and Food Waste Reduction. The mission of the Consortium is to bring together thought leaders and experts from across the globe, academia, industry, and government, nonprofit organizations, and to help food producers and food system stakeholders across the globe to utilize resources more effectively and efficiently in preserving nutritious food, improve lives and livelihoods. That a task that has never become even more in focus as during the current global pandemic that we're all experiencing and hopefully continues to improve with time. I'm very pleased and thankful for our collaborators from Wageningen Food and Bio-Based Research, Dr. Jan Broos and Mr. Joost Snels, that have really led this effort, and we look forward to hearing more from them today and their colleagues about utilizing the protocol and deep diving into that. And we really are committed to moving forward with this effort and establishing also working groups or a working group of those individuals that are interested really working with us to utilizing the protocol and also helping us gather data in certain value chains in particular locations of the world. And again, the colleagues from Wageningen will go much more into detail about that. So again, thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it back over to Kyle and our colleagues. Look forward to the training here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dirk. And I think we will then be introducing Jan Broos, and he will be giving a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Dirk. Welcome, everyone. I'm now trying to share my screen. I think it should be this one. I hope you can now see a PowerPoint. I'm happy to introduce this webinar, introducing this post-harvest food loss and waste monitoring protocol. Well, in principle, we had 2 weeks ago, we already had an introductory webinar attended by many of you, where we introduced the reasoning behind our monitoring protocol. Today, we will give some more explicit explanation of what it does, and I hope you also got the Excel yesterday, and otherwise you can download it later. So we will explain how this works, and I hope that after this you will be able to start using it and share with us your experience in doing this, so that we can further improve it and further work toward a more uniform way of approaching food loss and waste, not only monitoring it, but also working towards interventions that really contribute to food security. We have developed this protocol with a group. Some of my colleagues are mentioned on this slide, and especially Melanie Kok will explain more about the protocol later, and also Jo Snell will explain something about it. But this development was also largely supported by our consortium members, and also builds further on other work, amongst other in CCAF's context. What is the protocol? What will we do today? We will give a short explanation of the protocol. This protocol is an Excel-based system. It's not only filled with tables and quantitative tools, but also explains more qualitative questions, because we think that's also very essential in understanding food loss and waste. We will specifically dive into the first steps of this methodology, the steps that lead towards an understanding of the food losses and waste, and some quantification. Further steps that we foresee are deriving more understanding about the causes and identification of potential interventions. We will work on that in the coming period, and we hope to share this additional tools later, let's say later in this year. To be clear, this is not a lecture. We consider it a training. We want to be interactive in this session, and of course it's difficult to do this online. I see already some questions coming in. When relevant, we try to answer these questions during the session. Maybe some of my colleagues will do it during the presentation, and otherwise we can address them in another way. So some explanatory questions that you may have during the presentations, you may post them in the chat. And if you have more substantive questions, then we can address them at the end of the training. When formulating this methodology, we aimed for a pragmatic approach. That means that we do not want to come up with large set of measurements which require a lot of time, which are very expensive in general. So we want to exploit existing knowledge, existing expert knowledge, sometimes even secondary data. If they sound sufficiently reliable, please use those secondary data instead of trying to repeat all kinds of measurements. And of course, sometimes it is very necessary to do measurements, but we propose to only limit it to the most essential parts that we call hotspots. In the previous session, we have explained all the steps in this methodology. Melanie will also address them later on in the explanation of the Excel. But at least I want to again stress that we want this approach to be a quick approach, something that could be done in a week. If you have experts available, then theoretically you could at least make some estimates within 1 week. Key is again assessing feasibility of doing interventions, potential effectiveness of interventions that could reduce the food losses along the supply chain. And for that, you need information about the causes, and you need information about the food losses and waste, at least what are the hotspots. And so for us, the reasoning is that we want to work on interventions, we want to improve the food supply. Some leading principles for us, at least, the goal still is to reduce food loss and waste. But we want to do it a bit different we may do it differently from other approaches. The method should be lean. It should help focusing on essential parts of the system, and it should minimize direct measurements. Therefore, we made a protocol that estimates the food losses and waste qualitatively and only does quantitative measurements when necessary. We start with expert views instead of direct measurements. This gives shorter lead times, lower costs. We all support the identification of causes and potential interventions. But for that, we need understanding of the food system. So not only data, but also understanding drivers that may cause the current situation, that may influence the success of potential interventions. And at the end, also getting some idea about feasibility, effectiveness and sustainability effects of interventions. But I hope that in the steps before that, we gather sufficient information to do good assessment. And now is the time for me to hand over the key to Melanie. Melanie will show us some of the protocol. I will stop sharing my screen. How do I do that? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Anne. I will share my screen. So, I don't know, do you see it in the right size? Can you read it? You don't have to read it in full, but...
We can read it.
Yes,
Sure.
I can read
Then I
it.
leave it this size. For all of you who cannot see my screen, I want to, the Excel file is shared with you beforehand. So you can also open your own Excel file so you can go through the steps equally that I am doing. So we can all follow it. We start with the manual phase, which is the first sheet in the Excel file. And what we see is that this Excel sheet or this approach consists of 5 phases or steps, which include the scoping phase, the food flow phase, a focus phase, a cause phase, and an intervention phase. In between, there is also a possibility to add measurements. But this is the steps you have to go through to come at the end at the intervention phase. In this webinar, I will only go through the first 3 phases, so from scope till focus. All the steps are sequentially executed. So the results, for example, from the flow phase are the starting point of the focus phase, and so on. So when you scroll down, I go to the next sheet. If anyone has a question to clarify one of the phases, please use the chat for that, and my colleagues will take a look at that and answer them when needed. So at the introduction phase, this phase is useful to read before we start with the scoping. We made this approach for all type of supply chains and all type of organizations. So this approach should be useful by governments, but also by companies, by universities. Everyone who has a case in mind or want to do a pilot should be able to use this approach. Well, we came up at a picture with now 4 general cases. The first case is a network. This includes all type of supply chain links, and it can be used, for example, when a government wants to do a value chain analysis. The second case is one supply chain link. It can be used, for example, when a retailer wants to have more insight in their supply chain. So in this case, it's from farmer to trader. You can also go from farmer to trader to wholesaler to retailer. So it's dependent on who is the one who giving the exercise. The third case is a vertical coordinated organization. So we use it to compare one supply chain link. For example, someone who wants to have overview of how farmers or producers perform. Or for example, a retailer with several shops who wants to compare their shops, how they are doing. The fourth case is one supply chain link. This can be, for example, a processor who wants to review their activities. So these are all type of cases we have in mind. And well, it's easily to adapt it to your own specific case. You can enlarge them or make them smaller. Besides, you can have like generic supply chains or more specific supply chains. For example, when you do a value chain analysis, you don't know yet which farmers you want to include, which traders you want to include, and where are they located. But in case you have for a retailer, for case 2, for example, a retailer who wants to know how the supply chain looks like, they probably know with which trader they have a collaboration with and which farmers are part of that. So they know the name or their address. In that case, you have a specific supply chain. Well, this sheet shows you that you have several ways of what your starting point is. And of course, there are all kinds of variations on this. If there are any questions about the sheet, please don't hesitate to use the chat for it. Otherwise, I now go into the next phase sheet. This one, the scoping phase. So normally you start with a client who has a question or wants to know something of a supply chain. They hire an executor, that's for example, a consultant, a university, a student, but it can also be like an own employee. The client can be a company or a sustainability manager of a company or the government. In the scoping phase, the executor talks with the client about what they want. So we try to define the scope of the study. This includes the geographical area, the boundaries, the level of detail. Do you want to collect data in per season or per year? And also the accuracy of the data is taken into account. This sheet helps you to go to several questions to come to the boundaries of your project. So for example, one of the questions is like, for what time period do you want to have the data? Do you want data per year? Do you want data per season? Do you want data for 1 week? And this determines the scope of your project. So I go to the next sheet. We go into the flow phase. because now we have the boundaries of the project, so we know where we are looking for. The goal of the flow phase is to get a flow diagram that visualize all supply chain links and their connections. Besides, we should be able to have at least some quantitative information, and for example, sales, and also the mode of transport between supply chain links. So that is what we're going to visualize in this phase. We use a two-step approach for that. The first step is to make a food flow diagram. In this food flow diagram, often the client can help the executor with this because they have an idea how their general supply chain looks like. Well, we included some questions to be answered in this step, and that will help you as an executor to ask the right questions to the client to be able to draw the food flow diagram. Well, not everyone made a food flow diagram before, so we also make how to make a food flow diagram. I'm not going into detail, but when you click on it, you get a step-by-step approach how you should make a food flow diagram. So after asking the questions to your client, you should be able to make something like this. I also have an example of how a food flow diagram can look like. Well, when you have a generic case, so you don't know the names and address, you get the first picture. So you have a producer, and a producer sells a specific crop to a trader or collection center, and they sell it to a wholesaler. So you see all supply chain link involved, and you see the connections. You can even see the mode of transport. So for example, you know that the storage facility overall use a small truck or a large truck or a cooled truck, and you can all see that back. When you have a more specific case, so you know the names of in the supply chain, so which wholesale market you want to include, which collection center you want to include, you can make it more specific. In this case, in this example, we see a case study for French fries, so potato in Kenya. And you see that we include a farm group. And sometimes you can even give them a name. So 2 farm groups. We have like Andrew's farm here and Mike's farm here. And we know where the food flow is going to, for example, to Buuk Sorting Corporation. And from there on, we know by a large truck it goes to John's French Fries, and they transport it to Hotel Group De Moulin. So that is how it works like, and that is the first step you want to know. So the simple food flow. I go back to the sheet 2, food flow. So that is step A. For step B, we need some more detailed information. We want to fill it in per supply chain link. And to do that, we need experts who have knowledge about the supply chain. However, it's very difficult to get unbiased results in this. So we also have an option to help you how to arrange experts. I also am not going into detail about it, but at least I want to show you. So this sheet will help you to select an expert panel and how to get the data you want. So what type of experts are required? What are criteria that an expert should fulfill? And how many do you need to get unbiased data? So for example, the type of expert that can be required include, it can be like one of the supply chain links itself, but it can also be a non-governmental organization or a local ministry or a local consultant. Anyone who has experience in the supply chain. So we also formulated some criteria they should fulfill and how many you need. And We base this on Delphi, which is a method, an approach that helps you with it. You can further read it on the website. And what you want is that, what we do is that you ask the experts several questions. So I go back to number 2, food flow diagram. We are able, you see in here, what questions the experts should answer. And the idea is that from the Delphi method is that they should answer them first by themselves, and then you organize a kind of half-day workshop so that we get at the end one result or one range of results. The goal of this second part is to fill in this box per supply chain link. For example, we had the bulk sorting company, which was in the example of 2A. What we like is that we want to fill it in for them. So what activities do they perform? How many tons do they have? To what destinations are they going? But also, what do they sell? And to the link is already known. So what do they sell to the next link? So we do this for all type of supply chain links, so that overall we get a complete food flow diagram with a lot of detail. For example, you see here the 36 smallholder farms again, Andrew's farm, Mike's farm. So they all have different activities dependent on how the farm looks like. We know to what destination it goes and what they sell. For example, 1200 from Andrew's farm is going to the bulk sorting corporation. They perform sorting as an activity and have some site residual flows to landfill, animal feed, and one is unknown. And they sell a part to several channels like John Fresh French Fries. So of course, it happened that experts don't know everything. So therefore, we also use the unknown in this. In a later stage, we can always think about if we need more detail about it and perform an extra study or extra measurements. So we are back to a food flow. So at the end, we have a complete supply chain with details, both quantitatively based on estimates and qualitatively, so includes destinations, mode of transport. So from here onwards, we want to focus, because now we know everything that happens in the supply chain, but we don't want to focus on everything, because we want, at the end, we want to go to an intervention. So we're going to number 3, the focus phase. And the goal of the focus phase is to prioritize supply chain activities that are considered as most promising for food loss and waste reduction or increased income. We need the type of information we need for this, which we don't have selected yet, is the price, the sales price per stakeholder. But the experts could facilitate you with that as well. At this moment, we still didn't talk to the supply chain links by themselves, or they are an expert, but otherwise we didn't do many interviews yet. So to focus, we use the multi-criteria analysis. And this consists out of 2 steps. The first is the scoring step. So we score the data by certain criteria. And the second step, it's optional. For example, when the client thinks that some criteria are more important, they can also give a weighting to several criteria. The criteria are placed in 3 main categories: desirability, feasibility, and viability. We used 5 criteria. We used the tons per years that ends up in some destination. We used the percentage of this in the destination relative to the input of that year. We want to know the investment space, and therefore we need the sales price. But we also, for feasibility, we want to know if there is a chance that a specific company, person, municipality wants to take leadership And the fifth is that the time to impact. So is this a business case, yes or no? It's because we want to be able to adapt everything to your own situation. And clients can, for example, ask to give an extra criteria. For example, when they think environmental impact is the most important for us, why we start this exercise, we can add that as a criteria to score upon. So when we go to the next sheet, we go to the scoring sheet. And what we see above is the criteria again, and some place to fill in an extra criteria when your client wants that. We see the next table is to fill in the sales price per stakeholder. And then we have a really big table, which can include all information that you gathered during the food flow phase. So the name of the stakeholders, the activities they performed, all residual flows and their destinations, the weights to every destination, the percentage based on the input, the money. So is there I have to look back, the money is if there is an investment space. Then we have the chance that someone wants to be the leadership and wants to make sure that this is going to work. And the impact, the time till impact. So is there a business case, yes or no? At the end, will receive a short list of 3 or even more or less of stakeholders or even activities that are interest to focus upon. So we go to the example. This is a filled in sheet. So we have here the prices. And here we have all the information that is gathered during the food flow phase. And even some more. So for example, here we see Andrew's farm again. He performed 2 activities, production and sorting. Destinations was left on field and landfill. And the weight in ton in percentage based on what we already gathered. For example, we see the Boerhoek Sorting Corporation again, who did sorting. And we have a chance that Mr. A would like to invest in this of 50%. There is a chance, but it's not possible, not known yet if there is enough, if there's a business case, yes or no. So what we have to do is to get more insight in this case when we want to invest in this. The colors give the 3 highest scores per column. So in this case, the highest score are showed in green. Based on that, we get a short list. In this case, it's most relevant to invest in Mike's farm, followed by the wholesale market, followed by Boerhoek Sorting Corporation. But that is in this example. But for example, when the clients say, I want to do something with the Boerhoek Sorting Corporation, but there is a bit more insight needed, you can decide to add measurements here. And then we go to an optional phase, and I go to the next sheet. That's phase 4 in this case, because we want to add measurements. The next phase would be defining causes. And the last phase would be the intervention. This is still work in process. So we end here at the focus phase, that we know where to focus on. And we have to decide then, from that point onward, do we need extra measurements or can we continue with defining the causes? Are there any questions? Otherwise, I will stop sharing the screen and give the word to Joost.
There were a few questions in the chat, and I think most of the questions were answered in this course. Thank you all for your questions also.
Okay, thank you. Joost, I give the word to you.
Thank you, Melanie. And I will share my screen, and I hope that's everybody can see it now. Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, and also thanks for the questions in the chat. Well, I cannot see if there are coming in any questions, so I will ask the other panelists to just raise them, and then we maybe can answer them live instead of typing them in. But I will, for me at least, before we can maybe start a discussion more on the content, is what's next, what's relevant not only for you using this this protocol or this methodology, but also for us. As explained in the beginning, we are in a process of coming to interventions, lowering food loss and waste in developing countries in another way. There are several approaches and several methodologies available, but we are looking, as mentioned by my colleague Jan Broese, is to get to results more or less, or type of interventions more or less in a more quicker and faster way. But it's work in progress. So we gave the phase 1 to 3 very good thoughts, and it's also available for you all. But well, it could always be better. So what are we looking for? As a consortium and as a Wageningen University and Research, we're looking for people willing to use this protocol, and it's free for everybody to use. But especially for us, we are looking for 6 to 9 cases in which this protocol is used. And what we would like, because we did quite some research in the past related to potato, for example, rice, mango, and cassava. But of course, there are more products available. But we would like that there would be cases done in the near future, let's say this year, by people now sitting in this training session, this webinar, so that we can use the outcome of the usage of the protocol, and that we can validate the results we get by the results that we already have within those 3 supply chains already mentioned in this slide. But again, if people want to use it in, let's say, tomato or other supply chains, it's also nice. But that's what we are hoping to do this year. Preferably this year, and that's also the bullet point that's there. Well, it would be nice if we could start, or together with you all, the second half of 2020. But everybody knows there is something going on in this world preventing people to travel maybe, or to going into the field. So we have to take that into account, but that is what we are aiming for. So it's, again, the protocol it's out for the first 3 phases, are ready to use. The Excel is also available for people. What we like for you when you use it, to give us feedback on your results and your experience. So how did it work for you? What information were you able to gather within certain supply chains, and how was the usability for you? Did it make sense, and was it easy to use? So that's what we would like as a feedback, and of course also the insight in the results once you are starting to use it. On the other hand, so it's a collaboration, and that's what we are looking for. So for us, it's when we are able to start up working together with persons, let's say within the 6 to 9 cases, we get backup and support from Wageningen University and Research on how to use this protocol. Maybe there are some practical questions. We can help you with that. Also, we can give you some feedback on the first results that you have. If you are, maybe it's a little bit difficult to fill in. So that's what we are willing to offer and to share with you. And also, what's in it for you is the possibility to, let's put it another way, we are looking in a way to build some kind of working group that we together, it's not something that we just make, we invent behind our desks, but we want to make and develop it together with people in the field. So sort of development working group, so that we can build this protocol and lift it to a higher level, and also fill in the next phases that we still have to develop. So that's getting to causes and getting also to type of interventions. So this collaboration for us, it's getting insights, feedback, and for the people using it, you are the first one to use it. So you have all the benefits as a first user. So that's something that we really want to get out there and to organize. And before maybe there are some questions. What's the next step for us? And that's in the beginning also Carl mentioned it already. There will be available, it's already available, a form that you can fill in where you can put out your interest, what you would like to do, and there are some questions in there when you want to start your using this protocol, what type of supply chain you're looking at. Just take a look at it. And we are hoping that people are able to fill it in before the end of this month. And let's say if we have 6 to 9 cases, then we start with that. If there are more people are willing to use it, then we have to find out how to organize the guidance for your role. But that's for us really the next step. So it's, in theory, the protocol is there, the first 3 phases. The next step is getting it out there, people using it, and then getting and gathering your feedback to further develop it. So that's, for us at this moment, the status. And now I try stop sharing, and maybe then we have the possibility to, because I see the chat went wild. Maybe there are some questions. Maybe my colleagues can address them, or
Jan or Joost, can I ask a question? This is Dirk. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So, first of all, I think that this has been great to be able to walk through the details of the protocol. So, Melanie, thank you very much for that. So I was wondering, as people express their interest on the online form, and that gets back to you, and based on what you described in the timeline, as I look at the Excel spreadsheet and see one of the first tabs that says scope description, at what point in time would it be helpful to you, for those interested, to fill out perhaps that portion or any portion, so that you can perhaps evaluate whether this is on the right track, or whether that fits with the priorities that you're looking for? So at what point in time would you think it would be helpful for someone to begin filling out at least a portion of it, to identify that they kind of know what they're aiming for, or need additional input from you?
Okay, thanks, Dirk. For us, it's time-wise, as we said. Well, we want to give the people, not only the people in this training, but the people who have interest in this protocol, to take a good look at it and to express their interest to use it. And that preferably we want to have that insight in 2 weeks. And the next step for us is then we contact the people that are interested, express their interest, and to discuss with them what they are willing to do. That's some of the questions also in the form. What supply chain you're looking at, what type of products, and then for us at least they can start using it. And it would be logic that after finishing the first phase, more the scoping phase, that we give their first feedback, if it gives them the insight as it is. For us, we don't have a certain priority related to the scope that the research is going to be. For us, it's interesting when it is towards the product as mentioned, so the mango, the cassava, or the rice, or the potato, because it gives us some possibility to validate the results that we get on earlier research that we did. But for us, it's not that it's not a must that it has to be, let's say, a case A type of value chain analysis or protocol usage, or it should be a case B or C. So that's for the users, it's open, and it's for us not even discussion, so they can use it as they like. but we would like after every phase that we have a feedback moment, and we can say, are you on the right track? Did it still work as we think it should work? And give us feedback on that, and we can help them moving over to the next phase. Does that answer your question, or maybe also the question for the other people?
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful, and I think the fact that you're making this available, you're offering collaboration and support for people to work with us on that. I think that's tremendous. I think that's a huge value proposition that I'm sure everybody that's in this training seminar will be appreciating the value of that, and to have an Excel spreadsheet like that has everything laid out. It's a huge amount of effort if one were to try to create that themselves and what have you. And so this is a really great opportunity to work together and generating some of this additional data, despite all the different challenges that of course people are pointing out in the chat too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Yeah, that's also how we look at it, and that's maybe just the explanation on what's next. It could be on a master student level that you are within your research. You have a case that you want to research just a small or two entities in a supply chain. You're looking at the potato supply chain, and you have 2 or 3 farmers that deliver to the producer. But you want to use this methodology to get in more in detail on what are the food loss and waste occurring in that small supply chain. For us, that is as relevant as there is, let's say, a research on an NGO that is wanting to use this protocol for the whole potato sector in Kenya, for example, because we think it should fit both. And for us, both are as interesting as it is. The main challenge when we have more than 9 cases, then we have to find out a way, and we just want to see first what comes up, what hits us, but then we have to see if we are able to guide everyone. But until now, we have the capability and the possibilities to guide up to 9 cases. So it's open. Any other questions, remarks, or maybe what kind of discussions?
Well, Joost, I think maybe if it's possible, we might be able to allow the attendees to ask their questions verbally.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lower everyone's hands that have their hands up, because I'm not sure if you want to ask a question now, but use the raise hands feature, and we will recognize you and allow you to ask your questions verbally if that's possible. So we're going to try this. We haven't tried it before, so we're going to try it. So if you would like to ask a question, okay, I'm going to allow Courage to speak. So here we go. Courage?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, please.
We can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. I have 3 direct questions. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, so my first question is, this method looks like kind of a rapid assessment method. So my question is, does it have another standard against which its accuracy can be measured? That's my first question. And also my next question is, in the preliminary seminar or webinar that we had last week, it was mentioned that the focus is on Africa and South America, if I stand to be corrected. So my simple question here is, why has regions like Southeast Asia been left out? Currently, I'm speaking from Indonesia, where the conditions are almost like in Africa and some of these South American countries. And also my final question is, in this program, are there any opportunities like master's research or yeah, where students can also enroll, and maybe after doing some of this research, they can gain some degrees in maybe master's or PhD researches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Courage. And I think Jan, Joost, and maybe even Dirk could answer some of those questions.
I would like to respond. I think with respect to your first question about the accuracy of the method, any measuring or estimating measurement method is as accurate as the data or the knowledge that you have. We think that sometimes an expert may know the average situation even better than a few measurements, because measurements may also, there may be a lot of variation in different situations, so that maybe a typical average given by an expert may even be more accurate than a single measurement. But of course, if we want to know everything exactly, we have to measure everything in the world, and that's not realistic. So we try to be a bit pragmatic in that.
Can I add something to that, Jan, please?
Yes, please.
The Delphi method is a scientific method that tries to cover this issue of accuracy. Because if you have 15 people on average in the expert panel, the variation in the answers gives you the accuracy in some way. Because if everyone says 10%, well, you can count on it, that's between 9 and 11 or something, I don't know. But if one says 5 and one is 25, I think you need measurements to get more accuracy for that. So they provide you a range, and I think the variation is an indicator for the accuracy of the real data. You can continue again. I hope it answers the question.
I think this is a great answer. Thank you, Han. The next question was about Southeast Asia. Of course, we are very interested in doing this, in supporting measurements in Southeast Asia. But the reason why we mentioned those other regions is because they are covered in our consortium, and that was our primary goal. But in the end, we intend this method to be available for the whole world. So we would also be very happy to support measurements in other regions as well. And the third question was about the PhD research. This is quite a complex question that maybe we have to talk about that later.
Yeah. Well, maybe let me add something here to it, Jan, and first of all, Kurt, thank you for your questions and for your participation. And as Jan had indicated, the consortium was founded and is funded with a focus on Africa and Central America. The consortium is open. We just started, to include additional collaborators in other parts of the world, but the limitation is funding. We don't have the funding to expand the consortium. Funding would have to come in to be able to expand the consortium, if you understand what I'm saying. So part of our efforts that we're doing with this protocol is to introduce it, not just for consortium members, but beyond. And so you're a beneficiary of that, and others from many other countries that are in this current training session are benefiting from that as well. And so we're saying, hey, we're going to focus with our specific collaborators on value chains that have been identified as important to the consortium in Central America and in Sub-Saharan Africa. But at the same time, we would be glad to work with others in other parts of the world on other supply chains, as Jan and Joost and Melanie and Hanif outlined. And that's why we're kind of going through this process of prioritization. And within the consortium institutions and participants in this training, we have a number of graduate students that are at our various institutions that are working on master's and PhD projects that will incorporate the protocol generally as part of their overall master's and PhD thesis. So we're already doing that. Again, the consortium at this point in time doesn't have any funding beyond our initial allocation, that is with all the members and our various contributions to support the students that we're doing. that we are supporting. But again, we hope that over time, there might be opportunities to expand that. So it may not be totally satisfactory as an answer to you, but we're certainly open to working with people. So if you were to do a master's or PhD with somebody in Indonesia or wherever people are located, we'd be glad to work with you and your faculty member to help you do that. But we don't have really open spots in our current structure or the funding to support additional students. It doesn't mean that later this year or next year or beyond, additional funding could become available if we're successful in what we're doing. So.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. And I'm going to now recognize Aziz Abu. Aziz, I'm going to allow you to speak. So go ahead, Aziz. Aziz, can you ask your question? I think you may be muted, Aziz. Okay. Oh. Can you say something, Aziz? We can't hear you, Aziz. I'm sorry, Aziz. We're having some difficulties, and so I'm going to go to Joseph, and then I'll come back to you if we can figure that out. Okay.
Maybe meanwhile you can put it in the chat or not.
Yes, that would be perfect. Joseph.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. Great. Thank you, Carl, for the opportunity, and I also want to thank the presenters for the presentation. I just want to find out. I mean, looking at the protocol that has been developed, basically they're looking at working on some crops that was mentioned. We in Ghana, basically as part of the consortium, are working with a couple of students who are working on different crops. I realized I was only cassava, which was mentioned as part of the crops that the team more or less are looking into. I want to find out whether they'll be open to sort of also assist if students are working on, say, tomatoes or, say, corn, in terms of using these two to do some of their assessment on the field. That is my question. I want to find out from the team. Thank you.
May I answer that? Yes, I've been in Ghana many times, and I also analyzed the tomato value chain there. So it's no problem at all to include this case.
Perfect. And I think maize as well, Joseph.
Yeah,
is,
great.
Yes,
great,
of course.
great to have variety.
Yeah, maybe just to add and maybe to clarify, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but for us, we have some products that are for us easy to validate the numbers and the outcomes. So that's for us key, but it doesn't say that it has to fit in there. So I just want to mention it again. Other products, of course, are also relevant. You could imagine once we have, let's say, 30 or 40 people want to start, then we maybe have to do some cherry picking. But otherwise, of course, everything is, not everything, but most of the crops are relevant because at the end, we want to validate the usage of our protocol.
Okay.
In my opinion, we are looking at how can we involve people and how many and how. This is kind of a discussion at the moment I think everyone has. It's less about content maybe, but more about how can they be involved. Is that true?
Yes, I go ahead, Joost.
I just was wondering, my colleague, who he raises this question to the audience or ourselves. For us, it's this training session is once to explain more how this Excel works, this protocol works. Everybody has it in his email or her email, but how does it work? the next step is, of course, as my colleague Han just mentioned, how to get involved. So, and the easiest way, or the way that we are organizing now, is you have the possibility to fill in your how do you show the form? Form on the website, and just make clear that you want to use this. So that is what we are looking for. And again, as mentioned, that we are able to guide you through the process and using this methodology, this protocol. And of course, we also like to see what the outcomes are, so that we can validate this protocol and the usage. So that it is. So for us, it's we hope that people are enthusiastic about using it. They understand how to use it after this training. Maybe they need some more information, but we can deliver that. And the next step is that we want, by the end of this month, we want to know how many cases we could start this year, and that we are able to guide. And that's the process, as I mentioned, as an answer to the question of Dirk Meyer. It's then we go through the people using it. They go to the different phases of this protocol, and after every phase, we have feedback sessions and discussions online, probably, and preferably to what are the outcomes? What did you encounter? Was it easy to use? And can we help you by filling it in or making it more usable? So that's the main goal.
And this is Dirk. I would add to that too, Joost, and also Jan and Melanie, that from our perspective, speaking from the consortium, anybody that collaborates with us, whether current consortium member or others, as we've heard interest this morning or today, we are more than happy, then to acknowledge those collaborators with us on our website, our communication, going forward, as well as exploring with people that are collaborating with us, additional funding opportunities even in countries that are not currently consortium members. And of course, as data is gathered in some form of a database, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, as this data comes together over time, so maybe casting forward a little bit, few months down the road, what would that look like, and and how can people get some credit for that, or how can the data be utilized? So maybe I'll leave that sort of as a question for you and Jan to maybe maybe comment on that a little bit.
Yes, well, I think I hope that on the longer term we can indeed build on a richer data set. I think this is essential to understand food loss and waste. And I hope that this effort contributes to that.
Okay. Do we have any additional verbal questions? Our panelists, are there questions coming in? Okay, Muriel, I'm sorry if I didn't allow, going to recognize you, and I'm.
Hi, Kai, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, thank you.
First of all, I have to put my congratulations for the team for the work done, but I have some comments and some questions, because this protocol, I think it must be validated in the field, in the practical job, and it seems to me to be more easy in the well-structured and defined change with concentrate production, like rice. We have big farmers, the well-structured change, but when you say in cassava production change, this is very fragmented with numerous small family farmers, and I don't know if this protocol works well for this type of chain. Can you explain how the use for the cassava production chains will small family farmers, and we don't have the reliable information. Sorry about my poor English. That is. Thank you.
We understood quite well. Jan, Joost, or any of the team, could you answer that? Thank you.
Maybe Han?
Yeah, I can try to answer. Is my sound okay? I don't know that.
Yes, very good.
Okay. Well, we did many of those, but I think you don't understand the difference between the two methods. What you, I think, are looking at is if you have hundreds of farmers with maybe half a hectare of cassava production, it's difficult to organize measurements. But if you have 100 farmers of cassava with half a hectare and you're asking experienced maybe extension officer from the government or from the local, he comes at all these farmers and he knows a lot about all these farmers. So the number is the number of variation and the small farmer size is more a threshold for measurements than for our approach, I think, because experts, when you choose the right experts, they have a lot of knowledge of all these farmers because they have extension services and they have courses to all these people. They talk to all these people. They work in the field. So if you have to measure all these farmers, which we did, for a case, we have 80 farmers in Nigeria we measured, but the measurement method is a lot more extensive than our approach, and I think it's our approach will be easier to apply to smallholders than the measurement method, for the reason I just mentioned.
Maybe to add, so this approach or this protocol, this also will be our challenge within this project. It's not to replace the methodologies that are now and the protocols that are out there that are going into direct measurements. So all the real measurements in the field with all the difficulties, but even if it's easy for us, it's you can do all those direct measurements and get all the insight, and that leads at the end to certain interventions, lowering food loss and waste. This approach is, at the end, we want to have the same goal, and probably we have the same kinds of interventions, but based on not direct measurements, but based on the expert judgment and also the interviews, as just my colleague Han just explained, by getting insight of extension workers or the cooperation of certain farmers. So at the end, it's getting insight, but not the idea of one person, but well validated and well thought through using, for example, the Delphi method, and that's leading to solutions, interventions at the end. And that's our protocol. So it's, you come to maybe the same kind of interventions, but you don't need all the effort and all the time and all the money by doing direct measurements. So at the end, this protocol is also not, when you apply it, it doesn't give all the direct data that other protocols do. So that's also not the goal of this protocol at the end. Yeah.
Let me also add something to that, because we mentioned earlier, maybe I think you did in the previous webinar, that when you have an intervention which is building a storage or something, which is a huge investment, and the variation in the food waste from the expert outcome is high, so then there is a lot of uncertainty. And then if you want to make a big investment, you want less uncertainty, and our advice is, in that case, you should measure. But if you have expert who has a very low variety in their estimates of food losses, you can have a good financial estimate of your intervention, and you can estimate if it's a good feasibility case or not. So that's my advice. Okay.
If I could add to that, and first of all, I want to echo that, and I appreciate Joost what you have outlined, pointing towards the Excel sheet, which has still a number of tabs that are work in progress, but those tabs are really about the interventions, right? And ultimately, and also what Han just mentioned too, ultimately about making investments with regard to interventions, whether those investments are financial to build a warehouse, or whether those investments are in terms of training or financing to adopt a new practice or technology. You know, it's really about the solutions, right? I mean, we can have all the best and most accurate post-harvest loss and food waste data, but if we spend all our time, all our effort, all our funding on just generating that data in the most accurate manner, and we have nothing left, so to speak, in order to really work on the interventions or making those possible, the solutions, you know, we have really not accomplished what we set out to accomplish, right? We want to have reasonable, practical information, data. We want to have more people engaged, being able to, with a relatively low barrier of entry, you know, getting us practical information on post-harvest loss data in various value chains, you know, in many different locales. Some of them are very local or regional and not global or country-wise and so forth. And the more of that information can be generated with the help of students and experts and others that are in the field, the more we can identify the practical solutions and hopefully then bring those back to those local levels and really address the solutions that are necessary to reduce post-harvest loss and food waste. And so, you know, that's really what the consortium is about. It's not intended to replace other people's efforts. We applaud them, and maybe some of those very accurate efforts help us to calibrate our own efforts, but ultimately the consortium is about bringing practical and identifying practical solutions that can be implemented at a reasonable cost or to the beneficiaries. And that's what we don't want to lose sight of. And so we look forward to, and maybe you can comment a little bit more about what is the plan for the other tabs, so to speak, that work in progress. What should we be looking for, expecting in that regard?
Is there a team from Wageningen answer to that? What are the other the plan for the other tabs?
Well, I can give comment content-wise, not time-wise.
Well, content is perfect. Thank you.
We did a lot of research already on the courses. So what we do at the moment is that we want to make an inventory of all the supply chains that are there for livestock, for fruit and vegetables, all kinds. We already did a lot about that, and we want to organize these courses in such a way that if we have a specific case, you automatically go to the courses that are related to this type of supply chain part, or so we don't have to look for shelf life at the farm level, but only at retail level. So we look at courses that are very much related to the case at hand. So we want to have a kind of list that we can go to a specific part that's appropriate for the case. That's one thing. And you will add as much information as specific, because we know for specific products like mango, did you do this practice? These are different for other products. So we also go very much into detail for that. And we learn every time when we do cases, we learn more about courses and what people meet in their practical environment. And after that, we also have interventions that are related to these courses. So we also have a set of interventions that we already have that. We also have a set of evaluation indicators. That can be money, it can be affordability, it can be scaling up options, or time to get your return on investment back. But there are a lot of evaluation tools as well. Everything, in fact, is already on our desk, but not organized to show to the people. So we have to make all these linkages correct, and we have to organize all this information. And well, maybe Joost or Jan will tell something about the deadlines of that. I'm not a project leader, I'm just a content guy, so I give the mic to one of them.
Then we give the mic to Joost.
Okay, you put me between, what do you say, a rock and a hard place? So no, the content planning is always a thing, but but we wanted, we didn't want to have the whole. Let's put it the other way. The first 3 phases are essential, from getting from scope to the focus, and what are really the hotspots to focus on. So you really can use it. So we want to bring it out already. The next 3 phases is getting to causes is related to your hotspots. So that, as just Han described, it should be an easy way that you say, well, in this place of my supply chain, I want to focus on what are the reasons or causes why there probably is, not probably, there's food loss and waste. And then interventions are related because you want to get rid of the cause. So that's what we are doing right now. And what we want to do is that we first get feedback from the first 3 phases, and parallel we want to develop this, and that will take us up to 2-3 months at least. So, but by the end of this year, everything must be in place, included feedback from usage. So that's our planning at the moment. And what Han just explained is that the other 2 things is also more automated, just to say. We want to build it more that you have an easy clickable way of getting to, once you know your hotspots, once you know by the expert judgments, you all have, more or less where to look for, then you get, at an easy way, you get to your causes, and the next step is getting to the possible interventions that you can deliver. But that still takes us some 3-4 months to get that in place. But of course, it's very relevant for the protocol. Yeah.
Okay, so I really appreciate the explanation and so forth. So the way you're seeing those next that additional information, those interventions, so forth that you talked about evolving, doesn't totally depend on first this additional data collection that we're talking about, but certainly there is a follow-up and a potential iterative type of approach, right? As you continue working on those interventions and as we're gathering data and feeding into that really that effort is almost a little bit like a crowdsourcing approach to testing, completing, and refining the protocol and iterative process. Would that be kind of a way to also capture what we're looking at here in this process?
Yeah, it's you sum it up perfectly. So that's what we say. At the end, the protocol is one system. So it leads you from talking to your client. So that's the scoping phase to at the end in interventions. And the first 3 phases is really getting to the hotspot analysis. So that's what it's out there. In the meantime, that's on parallel. We're developing also, as Han, my colleague, just explained, there is a lot of knowledge available already. What are the causes that lead to certain forms of food loss and waste? So that we can bring in already. And once it is there and we have the first cases available, the 6 to 9 that we just mentioned, we are trying to develop now, then we can use that. One part of the protocol also of this total project, we won't finish just after a year, so we have more time to spend on, is to fill the database also. So and that's what we have to give a thought also, how to fill in the database with all kind of courses and all type of interventions, and that's an iterative process also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joost. Aziz has written this question in the questions and answers section, so just going to read it out here, and I'll answer the portions that I can answer. So he's wondering if he can get the presentation material, and of course he can, and we'll send you all. We've sent you all the Excel sheet, but we'll send you the PowerPoints and put it on our website as well. And of course, this is being videotaped, so that'll be on our website as well. Aziz is working in the maize value chain, and he is wondering if the methodology can be applied. Aziz, I don't quite understand the question, and so I'm just going to read it verbatim and see if the others can understand it. Can this methodology be applied to a research area that has been formed in clusters? And so if that makes sense to the to the panel.
I assume that what is meant is whether the food chain or food system can be analyzed if it is in a cluster. Then I think that in principle, if you understand all the, if you can distinguish the individual activities in a cluster and describe how they are connected, how the product flows through the system, then that's very practical. It fits completely in the system. It's not, we did not predefine the chains as such. The system is completely open towards your own definition of specification of all the individual activities in the food system. So in that sense, I think that the answer should be that it is very well doable if you have a clustered production system.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Just a question from the chat. Is there any idea if this protocol will become an app, a phone app at some point? Just a question there.
We're still looking for investors. No, it's that would be nice. It's not in the planning. What we see, the first two worksheets be formed in such a way that it's easy to fill in. So, and somewhere in our back of our mind is also it would be nice if you could do it in a more easy way, but it's not for the moment. But what is not there, well, maybe some people are really handy in it and can help us, but not for now. But at the end, it should be an easy to operate and usable tool. So, well, maybe an app thinking is nice.
Okay.
Maybe I can add something to that, because the thought behind that is, of course, that any farmer has a telephone at the moment, a smartphone, and he gets his extension service information on that. He gets his market information on that. But apps are used mostly daily, on a daily basis, and this tool is not meant to be used on a daily basis. You just have a case sometimes, and then you want to analyze it, and many people will like to use it, but not every time you start a case. So every day, apps are mostly used for a regular basis. So it's not our first goal to achieve that. We first want to get a good approach, and I don't know if it can be made practical like that, but it's a technical question more than a scientific question, I think.
Okay. I think that we'll have one more. Joseph Akalua has his hand up, and then we'll go to the closing. Okay. So Joseph, I'm gonna let you speak.
Yes. So just to go back to Azi's question, I work with him here in Ghana, and I'm sure what I also wanted to sort of re-echo as far as Azi's question is to find out whether if you have direct access to these clusters, Aziz is actually referring to, probably has to do with clusters of farmers. So if you have direct access to direct farmers to be able to sort of work with them on this protocol, is that possible rather than working with experts? I think that is what Aziz wanted to find out. If you have clusters of farmers who you could easily solicit for data or for the information, could you sort of work with them directly for the data instead of working with the experts?
Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, I can help.
He's asking. Oh, sorry, Melanie, go ahead.
I think it's really dependent on what your case is. Do you have a case like, for example, with several farmers, then your expert can also be one of the farmers. The idea of using expert is that you do not interview everyone, but a few experts that can also be the farmer in itself that know also or have knowledge about several farmers overall. That's the idea of the expert, and yes, it can be a farmer as well.
In my experience, we have done, for instance, a potato supply chain analysis in Kenya. And I don't know how many farmers we asked for it, but at the end, the underestimation was quite high, because you also have exact measurements from Kenya. Of course, you can collect data from many farmers, but I don't know if they have any clue. They will just give an estimate what they think, but they never measured it. So if you want direct data, it's best way to do the measurements yourself or organize measurements locally. With students, it happens in Kenya also. In other cases, I would prefer experts because farmers themselves, they don't even know, in most cases, the cost analysis of their production of the potato, if it's feasible or not. They don't have any insight in all that. So I doubt if the information of a farmer, even if you have 100 data points, will give you a more accurate result than real measurements you do organize yourself in 2 weeks or ask experts. That's my opinion.
Okay, and I just want to thank everyone for their questions and for this discussion portion. I think we'll begin to wrap the webinar up here. And so, first of all, I'd just like to ask the panelists if there's any last items you'd like to say. I'll hand the floor to whoever would like to speak.
I would like to thank all the participants for their interest. I hope we're going to cooperate nicely. Thank you.
I also would like to thank all the people because they have a lot of good questions. It shows that they are really in the practical world of food loss and waste measurements. But I would also like to say that we would like to stimulate as many people as possible to connect to this project. And we can learn a lot from you. We hope we can do this mutually experience. Then we have a win-win situation. So please, as much people as possible.
Yeah, nothing to add besides thanking you all, thanking for the great questions, and well, maybe this is the bridge to the last remark, maybe from Carl or Dirk. Please fill in the form at the end so that we express your interest, and then we talk to the people, connect to the people that express their interest by the beginning of next month, to give this really a follow-up and using this protocol. So thanks again.
Yeah, I would just I'd like to thank everybody for participating, and also for our panelists, and really all the effort that's gone in developing this protocol. You know, this is a wonderful tool that has taken lots of hours and lots of efforts by the Wageningen team, you know, to develop and to make it freely available, you know, and to also, you know, reach out in terms of this training and invite people to work with us in various supply chains, and in a working group is what we're offering and inviting you to do through the consortium. You have all the information. I'm sure Kyle will re-emphasize that again. But so again, I want to just thank everybody for taking time today to be with us, and look forward to working with all of you. And please do take advantage of this opportunity to work with us, to work with our colleagues from Wageningen on utilizing this protocol and gathering data to help make a difference with regard to reducing post-harvest loss and food waste.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you to all the panelists. And I'm going to share my screen for 1 second to reiterate the assessment form that we have, that we want to ask you to fill in. It's at our website. The URL is at the bottom of this card. I think we've also posted it in the chat. We'll send it in the email, so you should be able to receive the URL in multiple different forms. But please, we want to know a little bit about you, about how you'll use the protocol, and if you want to be part of a working group. So there are a number of questions. It should take you 2 minutes, so it's not a hard thing to do. But that's the assessment form that we've been talking about, and we want to keep this discussion and this dialogue going, and really capitalize on the momentum of first of all, Wageningen putting out this protocol, introducing it to the world 2 weeks ago. Now we've had this training, and now we're really excited to get it going. And I just want to thank everyone for that. So fill in the protocol. And then I would be remiss to not tell you about an upcoming webinar series that's going to be on June 30th, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I think that's 4 p.m. In Central European Time. It's going to be on entrepreneurship, economic development, and the scientific method. And we have some great presenters from Bacani in Italy, from Sequoia in Tanzania, and from the University of Maryland. So it's going to be a great webinar as well. So just be on the lookout for that. And we want to thank everyone for being there and fill in the assessment form. So I think with that, I will bid everyone a good day. Thank you so very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.